Hello and welcome to another Grow Together Food and Medicinal Gardens episode. In this episode we're going to look at the disastrous results I've had with my allotment, but also give you an update on the JADAM experiment and the Electroculture experiment. So before we go to all my failures, let's at least start with my successes. The potatoes have done really well in my potato planter. So everything has had the JADAM liquid fertilisers, and they bypass the root system because you spray them onto the foliage and the plant absorbs it. It's almost like having an intravenous infusion into the plant. But in a couple of places there's a little bit of electroculture. Can you tell which ones have had the electroculture? Now, if you look at this is how it started out, in the middle, very small, and then I hid an antenna, and hey presto, this one is much, much bigger now, and that was the smallest potato in the entire thing. Now, there's also an antenna, it's also closest to the antenna in the middle, and it has the additional antenna. Actually, antenna isn't really the right word, because this is one of the magnetic pieces that runs from north to south, and it's just on galvanized wire with a magnet on the end, pointing in the right direction and hidden under the hay. So the antennas suck the electricity out of the atmosphere, whereas this type is enhancing the Earth's magnetic field. But yeah, you can see the difference, considering if we go back to how small that middle one was. But who knows, that might just be coincidental, so let's go to the allotment where I've done a lot more electroculture experiments. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be showing my allotment to anybody right now because it hasn't gone according to plan, to put it mildly. But it's important that we learn from each other's mistakes, so I'll show it to you. And then we'll come back and I'll walk you through what I've learned so that you don't make the same mistakes yourself. Ta-da! The world's tiniest amount of growth in an allotment ever. So this is the control group, where it's only had a tiny bit of alpaca poo as the manure and some bark, about 2 inches. The one here is the JADAM, although please don't judge JADAM by this, because I haven't done half the things you're meant to do, and I didn't do the most important thing, which was the JMS. This side is the electroculture. Now, there is some electroculture here, but a lot of the stuff got eaten before it had a chance. So I'm kind of ignoring this one because it hasn't got the same vegetables in it that the others have. So yeah, I'm sort of writing this one off and just having this one as the electroculture one, because at least it's got the same things in it. Now, if you have absolutely no idea what electroculture and JADAM are, you need to go to episode 18, where I walk you through exactly what it is and what I did. Now, it's almost like watching snails racing to compare the difference. One tomato has done well, about 33 centimetres, a foot tall. So that's the JADAM. Now, under this, there is raw fish, raw egg, and coffee grounds. And over this side, nothing but the magnetised wire. Now, actually probably the same height, but it's nowhere near as bushy, but it's already trying to tomato. So I think the JADAM one is better. It's going to be a better one. On the beans, the electroculture bean is lovely and bushy, and it's 70 centimetres tall. Lovely and bushy as in compared to all the other straggly things I've been growing, I should probably say. Now, the JADAM bean that's had the various sprays that I've been putting on with the liquid manures, that is 60 centimetres, so 2 foot, and that isn't as bushy and it hasn't flowered yet. You can't really judge these things on just one plant, but what I'm noticing is all of the beans on this side germinated. Now, some got eaten, but all of the beans I put germinated in this border. All the other borders, a few germinated, but none anywhere near as well as this one. So that was interesting. There is the paramagnetic basalt in the soil as well. So you can see the huge sunflowers they've got. They're definitely doing better on the electroculture side than anywhere else. So yeah, they really haven't done that well here, although I think some got eaten and I had to replace them, so that's probably not a good comparison. I need to do tonight, I'm going to do another load of the fertiliser, the liquid fertiliser on the potatoes. So these are the potatoes that have had absolutely nothing. All I've done is water, and they've had a tiny bit of manure, and as you can see, they are not quite half the size, but they're certainly smaller than the other pathetic specimens I've grown over here. Had I done JADAM properly, I think it would be winning hands down, but this is an accurate reflection of somebody who lives a very busy life and slots in the gardening is not a priority, and it shows because I put everything in too late and I haven't done the solutions enough. This side isn't as good as the JADAM potatoes, but they are taller and they are better looking than the ones over there that have had nothing. So compared to the control, out of all the pathetic things that I've managed to grow this year, these are an improvement. They are less pathetic than the ones over there. Hilariously, the border that got left to the end, now I was going to do some Electroculture, the round towers in this, but I haven't had a chance to get them fabricated. I need help, professional help with that. So this bed has nothing but the alpaca poo manure. The only difference with it is, one, because it is at the bottom of the slope, so you can see the whole allotment slopes downhill. This one gets the most water. Also, in the winter, I just covered the ground with the cardboard because I'd run out of mulch. So the hay went on in the spring instead of the autumn, and then a nice thick mulch. This is how I would normally garden. The other mulches got put on in the autumn, and although it had the hay, that all disappeared virtually. So this only really has a 2-inch mulch, whereas this has got 4 to 6 inches. And this one, you can see the potatoes are so much better. Now they're hungry. You can see they are a little bit nutrient deficient, but the size and vigour. So it just goes to show you, out of all the tips and tricks and all the things I'm experimenting with, good old-fashioned deep mulch is winning hands down. So next year, I definitely need to have a really thick mulch on everything and then see how the JADAM performs versus the Electroculture. But how funny that the one bed that I really haven't done anything that I wouldn't normally do, I just was a bit late doing it. That looks better than anything. There we go, such is life. But anyway, you can see a clear difference between the control, the JADAM and the Electroculture. But like I say, do not judge the JADAM on how I've done it, because I haven't done it at all well. I've just been too busy and it hasn't been a priority. That's why something like Electroculture is better for me than probably something like JADAM. But that being said, I do love the JADAM to be able to, because you can see it happening. You can see the ferments. Let me show you one of the ferments. Now they are disgusting, they do stink. But that aside, I find it so fascinating. Like, this is some seaweed I collected, and that is just so disgusting looking, but you can see that wonderful fermentation happening. It's just seaweed with some rainwater and a couple of handfuls of really good leaf mould, and that contains the bacteria. And boy, is there an aroma in there, and that makes such a rich fertiliser that I mix with some of the others that I've created. But man, JADAM smells. It does smell. Ooh, let's get that lid back on, nice and tight. In that one, I've got fish fermenting. That won't be ready till next year. But there's something quite magical about the JADAM. And one evening I came down and sprayed it on the potatoes. Not these ones because they weren't too bad, but some I had at home. And they were really pale and pasty looking because they'd been in a bucket with just regular soil. And I thought, I'll photograph that in the morning to see, so that when the fertiliser kicks in, it'll be interesting to compare. The next morning I come out and they've greened up. They've gone from like this colour to this colour overnight with one application. So that just was mind-blowing that it could work that fast, and I never got to photograph it. So, you know, I've been so impressed with the JADAM, and there's something truly magical about seeing all of your potions bring away, and then you put them on, and just how the plants perform. So do not judge JADAM by what I've done, because I've been appallingly bad. I've just about kept on top of putting a liquid fertiliser on it every week, and as I say, I'm due to do this one, which is why they're looking a bit pasty. But I've done the labs as well, but I haven't done the JMS, which is like the most fundamental thing you're meant to do with JADAM. So if we have a ridiculously hot season next year, now I've got all these structures built, which is what delayed me from getting all the vegetables in the first place. I was so busy putting all of this stuff up that by the time I'd finished, it suddenly went into, from 2 weeks of spring, it suddenly went into summer, and it was blazing hot and everything was baking and nothing grew. So if that happens again next year, I'm going to put shade cloth on these structures so that things can grow, because that blazing hot sun, I mean, it's been cool now for a week or two, and still things are a bit like, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered to grow. So what went wrong this year? Several things. I followed the seed packets religiously. When they said sow things in February, I sowed things in February, rather than listening to my own intuitive knowledge that this season was going to be late. You could see it, feel it, but even so, I religiously followed the seed packet because it said February. Something the Garden Viking, Nate Murray, warned about was sowing seeds too early, because what you want is for the plant to germinate and then the conditions be perfect and it just keeps growing and growing. What you don't want is stop-start. And that's exactly what mine had. My grow tent to germinate them was fantastic for that, but the lighting wasn't strong enough to get them to grow. So then it was too cold outside. I can see a dog head in the background. What are you doing? Stop eating bees. The conditions need to be right that I start things in the grow tent and it's warm enough that I can put them in the polytunnel without the frost getting to them. So that was a major learning point. The next thing is the seasons are very odd. I mean, spring was so short. By the time I'd finished all my building, we were bang into summer and it was so hot that nothing was growing. And I thought if I put enough water on, things would grow. No, they didn't. It was just too hot. So that small amount of spring we had was vital. Had I got everything in on time, they would have been established enough that the sun wouldn't have affected them as badly. And, you know, as I said, next year I can put a shade cloth on if the same thing happens. So I'm prepared for next year, even though I've mucked up this year. So the one area I have had success with is the JADAM fertilisers, the homemade ones. So I have my special brew, which consists of all the wonderful weeds I had in my garden this year. I brewed them up with some leaf mould, and that was collected from a local forest. And they are so simple to do because you don't do anything. It's the soil bacteria that does it, that's in the leaf mould. So you get a container filled with water, or 3/4 filled with water, and the weeds, and then you add a couple of handfuls of the leaf mould, and hey presto, you wait a few weeks and you have a very good fertiliser. So I've blended several together. There's the calcium fertiliser made from the eggshells. There's fermented urine, which is a very good source of nitrogen, and that's what really puts the green into the plants. And then, of course, everything from the weeds and the seaweed. So it's all those minerals from the seaweed. So really incredible, very powerful fertiliser. But the one thing I didn't know about JADAM until it was way too late is it stinks. There is no other word you can use. When I've applied it to the garden, and you always do it after the sun has gone down so that there isn't the interaction with the leaf and the sun, but even so, it smells like a farmyard for days. And whatever you do, do not spill any of your homebrew on you or your clothes, because you will stink for days. You just cannot get the smell out of your hands. Every time I do it, I forget to wear gloves, and every time I regret it. And the other lesson, of course, is you really do need to dedicate time on a regular basis. I'll do it when I've got a moment,
isn't very good philosophy. Now, I have been exceptionally busy the past few months. I've been harassing my local council because their green proposals just aren't green. And it's important that we speak out when we can see things that aren't right. So if you want to see what I've been up to, go to the Successful Garden Design YouTube channel and you will see various debates I've been having with my local council. But anyway, I'm glad that that is over, so now I can actually dedicate time to my garden, and maybe one day I'll actually do a planting plan for it. Yes, I still haven't done it. So I hope this episode hasn't put you off growing your own food, now that we've demonstrated just how easy it is to have it completely fail. Well, maybe not completely fail. We'll see what the entire season does, but it's not looking good so far, let's be honest. But it does demonstrate just how important consistency and timing is when it comes to nature. So I've learnt a lot this year from all my mistakes, and I hope you have too by following along and looking at them all. But don't let my failures put you off. It is so vital that we grow our own food. With the cost of it and possibly the shortages coming up, we do all need to have good supply of healthy organic food. And the taste is so unbelievably delicious, is night and day different from anything you'd buy in a supermarket or even farmer's market. So it's well worth putting the effort in. So until next time, take care. You bomb every video I do, don't you? Just settle. Settle. Come on. Not right in front of the camera. That's not what I meant. Go away. Oh, good grief, it's worse than having children.